You ever look at your grocery bill and just wonder, how did that happen? How can something happening thousands of miles away suddenly make your food more expensive? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on one of those hidden connections. It's this wild chain reaction that starts in a war zone and, believe it or not, ends right at your dinner table.
I know, it sounds like a weird question, right? What could a conflict in the Middle East possibly have to do with my food bill? But the answer? Well, it uncovers this surprising and honestly super critical chain reaction. It connects these giant shipping lanes to quiet farm fields and then, all the way to the food on your shelf. So let's trace it step by step.
Okay, so our story starts right here. This is the Strait of Hormuz. And look, you need to understand, this is one of the most critical and most vulnerable shipping corridors on the entire planet. It's the very first link in that chain we're talking about, the one that goes all the way to your kitchen.
So, what is a global choke point? Well, the best way to think about it is like a superhighway with only one lane and no exits. All this massive volume of global trade, it's all forced to squeeze through this one tiny passage. So if there's any disruption here, it's not just a traffic jam. No, it sends these massive shockwaves through the entire global economy.
And the amount of stuff that flows through this one spot is just incredible. We always hear about the oil, right? And about a quarter of all the world's seaborne oil goes through here. But it's also a huge route for natural gas. And here's the kicker for our story. About a third of the entire global trade in fertilizer. Keep that number in mind. And this is what happens when that choke point gets squeezed shut. So after the conflict kicked off on February 28th, ship traffic just plummeted. We're talking from about 130 ships a day down to just 6. That's a 95% collapse. It's like the world's busiest highway just got shut down overnight, a massive, immediate shock to all those global supply lines.
Okay, but this isn't just an energy story. I mean, it is, but it's so much more. That sudden stop in traffic, that's where this crisis starts its journey, from the gas pump all the way to the farm. This, right here, is the fertilizer connection.
It all happens through this kind of 4-step ripple effect. So, step 1, the conflict creates an energy shock. That makes it way more expensive to produce and ship, well, everything. Step 2, that immediately creates a fertilizer shock. Why? Because making fertilizer uses a ton of energy, and a third of the world's supply is now stuck in that traffic jam we just saw. Step 3, this forces farmers to make some really tough choices about what to plant. And step 4, those choices, that's what eventually determines what you and I pay for food.
And look, this isn't just some theory. The impact was immediate, and it was severe. The price of urea, that's a key nitrogen fertilizer that helps grow a ton of our staple crops, it surged by almost 46% in 1 month. That is a massive, massive cost increase hitting farmers right when they're getting ready to plant.
You know, the chief economist at the Food and Agricultural Organization put it perfectly. They said this is a uniquely dangerous kind of shock. It's like a triple threat. It hits our energy systems, our fertilizer systems, and our food systems all at the same time, and that creates this cascade of problems.
Okay, so let's zoom in a bit. How does a huge global market shock like this actually change things on the ground, in the real world? Well, it all boils down to the tough choices that individual farmers are now forced to make.
I mean, really, put yourself in their shoes for a second. Your number one cost, fertilizer, just skyrocketed. You can't just eat that loss, right? You've got to adapt, and you've got to do it fast. So, what's the logical move?
Well, you shift your strategy. It's just smart business. Take the US, for example. We're seeing farmers planning to plant over 3 million times fewer acres of corn. And corn needs a ton of fertilizer. And instead, they're planting over 3 million more acres of soybeans, which need a lot less. They are actively pivoting away from the crop that just got way too expensive to grow.
And this isn't just an American thing. Not at all. We're seeing similar reports coming out of other major agricultural hubs, like Australia. It's a totally rational, worldwide economic reaction. I mean, if a key ingredient for your business gets crazy expensive, you're going to use less of it, or you're going to switch to a product that doesn't need it as much. Simple as that. Okay, so farmers are changing their plans. The next obvious question is, when do the rest of us start to feel this? Well, this is the part of the story where that chain reaction finally reaches your kitchen.
And the answer is, we're already seeing the first signs. There's this thing called the Global Food Price Index. It basically tracks the monthly price changes for a big basket of food items all over the world. In March, it jumped 2.4%. And the FAA was very clear. They linked this rise directly to the higher energy costs coming from the conflict. Now, the pressure isn't the same everywhere. The biggest jumps we saw were in things like sugar and vegetable oils. Cereals are also starting to creep up. And you got to remember, these aren't just standalone items. These are fundamental ingredients that are in like thousands of products on the grocery store shelves.
And here's a really important point. While everyone feels these price hikes, the pain is not shared equally. The burden falls hardest on low-income countries, the ones that have to import a lot of their food. So nations that were already facing huge economic challenges, they're now at an even higher risk of food insecurity.
Okay, so it's really, really important to put all of this in perspective. The system is absolutely under stress, no doubt about it. But this isn't the time to panic. We really need to dig into the nuances of what's going on here.
It's like we're living in two realities at the same time. So on one hand, yes, prices are rising and the pressure is real. But on the other hand, that food price index, it's still way below the crazy peak we saw back in 2022. And get this, while costs are high, the forecast for global cereal production is actually at a record high. So yeah, the situation is serious, but there are some important buffers in the system right now.
So where does this all go from here? Well, if this disruption keeps going, in the short term, we can probably expect continued price pressure on stuff like wheat, vegetable oils, and sugar. The bigger worry, though, is the medium term. See, if farmers use less fertilizer this year, that can mean smaller harvests later in 2026 and into 2027. And in the absolute worst-case scenario, this cost problem could morph into a genuine food security problem.
So if there's one big thing to take away from all this, it's this. Wars don't just raise prices because of scary headlines. They raise prices through these hidden, interconnected systems. Systems that, honestly, we all depend on every single day.
And today, the most important hidden system that we've talked about is fertilizer. It's the silent middleman that turns an energy crisis into a potential food crisis. It's the thing that connects a conflict thousands of miles away directly to the choices a farmer makes in their field.
So the next time you hear about some disruption in a distant part of the world, it's worth asking yourself, okay, what are the hidden connections here? Because as we've just seen, the seeds of a price shock you feel at the grocery store, they're very often planted far, far upstream.